will be welcoming next for a unique discussion our very own Martin Schilling, accompanied by Katrin Suder. But the title of the next session is actually going to make everyone who lived in Germany smile a little bit. When it comes to German bureaucracy, it's always a fun time to be had. In this discussion with Martin Schilling, CEO and co-founder of DTM, Katrin Suder, former Secretary of State of German Ministry of Defense and chairwoman of Supervisory Board of the Deutsche Post, will talk about her experience shaking up the German bureaucracy to speed up defense capability building and turning political will into actual actions. I would turn to Martin and Katrin and make sure that they are ready and mic'd up before calling them onto the stage. There you go. Then I will welcome Katrin and Martin. Huge round of applause for them, please. Welcome, Katrin. Welcome, Martin.
Have a seat. All right, so this is one of the last fireside chats of Deep Tech Momentum, but I'm very sure it will be one of the best because I've been looking forward for this for many days, for actually 2 days. So our guest now is, by our own description, a nerd, physicist, PhD on neural networks in the 90s, where AI was something you whispered at conferences nobody attended. She has a habit of walking into rooms not built for her. The first and at the time only women among 60-plus McKinsey directors in Germany. And then in 2014, she walked into a defense ministry that had no idea what to do with a former management consultant and rewired it to a certain degree anyway. Today, she chairs the supervisory board of the DHL Group, one of the most important industrial magnates of Germany. Most of you know her as the State Secretary Ursula von der Leyen called in to rewire Bundeswehr procurement. She set up the Cyber Innovation Hub, and this was already a cultural shift that we see as well already today. And now on a personal note, she was the one who hired me at McKinsey. And a couple of her leadership classics still rattle around my head. One is, a tool with a fool is still a fool with a tool is still a fool, which I think every time when someone says, hey, I'm now with ChatGPT doing a complex strategy, or viel hilft viel. Not always, but sometimes. You almost always leave a conversation with Katrin with more energy than you came in. She has the perfect combination between charm and razor sharpness. So welcome, Katrin Suder.
Basically, maybe we should stop here because it can't get any better for me, so thank you.
Okay, Katrin, maybe first question. You have co-founded the Cyber Innovation Hub in 2017. It was an innovation unit, one of the first of Europe's. If you now could build it from scratch again, what's the one thing maybe you would change?
Can I have two?
Please.
Because I think two are important. One thing is I would make sure that they not only bring innovation and prototypes to the troops, which is good, but that we have a path to scale them. Mm-hmm. Because the problem is still it's a prototype, but we need to really scale them. And the other thing is make it even more radical, unbureaucratic. Mm-hmm. It was not the time way back then. We just heard it in the panel before. Now is the time. But I think those two things I would try to change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When we think about institution building, I think now it is really a bold time for institution building in Europe. Diana, ERC's expansion to defense, NATO Innovation Fund. If you had the chance to build one institution that makes a dent in the defense ecosystem for the next, let's say, 10 years, what would be your shot?
Probably one is not enough, but okay, fine, I take the pitch.
Viel hilft viel.
I think then it would be a real DARPA. Because I think what we need is disruptive innovation. And we need it big and bold, and we need to invest in it. And we saw in the US how it's done, we see in China how it's done. But we always shy away from big investments and then from really making it, and for failure. And a real DARPA would also mean take big money, but also give them independence and have the right program management. We see it a bit also in Sprint, what they're doing. And then I think it's important to have the right governance. We have good ideas in Germany, we have good institutions, but then we kill it with the wrong governance.
And we have, as you said, we have Sprint. They would likely argue there are some kind of DARPA. So what's missing in your opinion?
No, I think they're working like a DARPA in many respects, and I think we see great stuff coming out. I think we need to have them bigger, and I mean they have been fighting for long. It's called Sprintbefreiungsgesetz, whatever this is in English, but it means giving them more rights, more freedom, and this alone shows that there was a long battle for less bureaucracy, for more freedom, and I think bureaucracy doesn't win wars. It's very true, and we heard it on stage before. So I think this is what is missing, but they're on a great track. But we have to live it up also on the European level.
And you said, I think, something very right, which many of the defense founders experience. It is now easier to get pilots going as well in the defense sector, but winning these big contracts is still the major issue. And one could argue that Stark here is an exception rather than the rule. When you would design something that, as well, the innovators, not the big primes only, get these big contracts faster, what would it be?
I think we need a separate track for that. Otherwise, I think they just got stuck. And I mean, the primes have not been waiting for the disruptors. And so I think what we need is a dedicated budget, different rules, different governance. And then let them do their play, which can be very different, very disruptive, and we need it. But I think it won't work in the existing system. It's getting better, but I think it's incrementally getting better. And if it's true, what we hear from some of the military experts about Russia in whatever it is, 29, although I was wondering why do they tell it's 29, right? It's anyways, but that's a different debate. And if we see what's going to happen in Taiwan, I think we have to be faster in capability building, and this is why we need to scale startups and to get more disruption in the field.
I think what we probably both concede is there is movement in the ecosystem, right? In the German defense ecosystem, there's a lot of currently money, but as well willingness, and you see this as well in this conference, there are a lot of defense founders and as well armed forces. And when you think about these disruptive ideas, not only the incremental steps that are disruptive, so let's think about 10xing the procurement volume we can give to the defense scale-ups. What's the unlock, in your opinion?
I'm not sure that you can always unlock things. Maybe you have to just build up new things. I mean, we heard it on stage what is needed in terms of transformation, but those of you who have done a transformation, doing a transformation with 20,000 people, you can't just unlock that. That's not going to go overnight. So I think we have to build separate systems which can go fast, and then we have to take the hard work of transforming a system. And one of the speakers on the stage before said it, the procurement systems, not only in Germany, by the way, it's across Europe. These systems have not been built for the times we are in. And so I think we have to build systems which are built for the times we're in, and then we have to deal with the old system. And I just listened for a few minutes to the other stage, and Jens Spahn was saying something about we have to allow for fast failure, and we have to build also systems which protect the individual, but make sure that we can be faster also if we do a failure, for example, to let go of people. But transformation is a hard work. It's craftsman's work. It's not just unleashing some energy. That can be done in startups.
Maybe to add to your argument, we had yesterday here Carsten Wildberger, who literally did exactly this, right? This new Ministry of Digitization. Is this some kind of prototype where you say this is not, we try to digitize all other ministries, we just build a new one? Is that kind of institution building you mean?
Well, I was clearly also stating that I think we need a digital minister, so I was in favor of that model. We can now argue, is it the right organizational setup? Does he have the right rights? Does he have enough budget? Does he have enough veto rights? We can argue that, and that's probably a nerd debate people have, and I have. But I think it's a good sign. It's a good sign that he comes from the outside with the digital expertise, and I think we see some light. And I think we see some hard times he's having.
And he ships to some, I think this, But I would argue as well, this new dynamic, new team, and there's movement, and that's your argument, right? It's a green field, it's not the brown field.
Yeah, and what I'm always preaching is we need more what we call them Querwechsler. We need more people who come with expertise from one system, for example, especially from private sector, and go into public sector. Our system, especially in Germany, is totally closed. And people in the ministries, they don't know what good looks like. How can they? And they can't, the speed of change is so fast. And so we need more expertise from the outside who can go and help the system develop. It's like an inorganic move, if you want, right? It's the M&A, while at the same time we have to educate people, we have to upskill people, but this takes too long. The challenges have to be solved today. So we need some M&A.
So now let's bring this back to the defense ecosystem, okay? So this idea, we're building on something new, a new institution. If you could build one new institution in Germany in the defense ecosystem to speed up procurement, what would be the one institution you would build?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I think I would do the Cyber Innovation Hub in a bigger way, in a scale-up way, with more money. But if we leave this aside, then I think we tried something actually in my times, which was especially for longer-term developments, especially in air defense, where we have nothing against some of the Russians. And I think what we need is in those high technology forefront things, we need a totally different approach to it. We need separate teams, we need them somewhere else, we need them greenfield, we need them really to explore with technology to solve those problems. And so I would build something which is not a DARPA, which is more focusing on individual capabilities, but in a totally different way than we do it today.
And isn't it a procurement type organization or what? Yeah.
Yeah, in the end, you have to procure stuff, but you also have to invent stuff. You have to make sure, and this is, we talk about red invention now, so something which is not on the open market, but we need those capabilities, and I would focus on that, and this can only be done within the system, but in a different approach. You hear me say always the same thing. For the solutions we need are different to the existing ones because the problems are different. That's my big pitch. And now we can argue, is it the startup world, is it the scale-up world, is it whatever it is, but it needs to be different.
Great, great. I would love to ask you for your opinion on something we discussed yesterday on the stage. We quickly discussed it before. So yesterday, Frank Appel from Deutsche Post, supervisor, now Telekom, former CEO of Deutsche Post, exactly, said, hey, why don't we work together to have this 1% pledge of all most important enterprises, or 1% procurement flows into startups, ideally deep tech AI, to massively level up the ecosystem? Good idea, bad idea? What would you?
Well, in the startup agenda from the Startup-Verband, I pledged for equal share of the economy, which is something between 5 and 8. So I'm totally there. And we saw it in France, where Macron was actually releasing that energy and convincing big corporates to spend more on innovation and more on startups. And I think it's the right way. But you have to orchestrate it. You have to bring people together to get it done. But I think it's a good idea, definitely. And it should be the fair share. We're not, and 1% is not even the fair share. We're not asking to get more than the primes or other. We're just asking for a fair share. Yeah. And so quota, I've been a big fan of the female quotas, so I love quotas. If people don't move, force them to move.
Okay, great. How could you personally help to move?
Well, I can disclose that we already discussed that we try to build a task force, and let's make that happen. Let's bring people together. Let's take Frank Appel on his word and bring some more. I'm pretty sure that Obermann is in the boat, and we have some others, so let's try to make it happen. Yeah, Verena is here, was here, so let's bring people together.
Totally, amazing. Okay, cool. Okay, you'll have a chance to ask 1 to 2 questions before we need to get Katrin to a call later. Let me ask you one leadership question. So you have a substantial leadership experience within management consultancy, McKinsey, then you went into the public sector. So this was a big step where you probably as well had several experiences around leadership. If you could take one leadership lessons from your time in Bendler Block, what would that be?
One leadership, always this one. Many,
you can have two.
Anyways,
you can have two.
I take one. So I think is when you feel that something is wrong, it probably is. And then speak it out, even if it's uncomfortable. And you said it in the introduction. When I came to in the Ministry of Defense, and I see some of the colleagues here, everybody was thinking, who is she, right? And so it doesn't matter how you get there. It does matter what you do once you're in there, and then keep your uncomfortable feeling. So I was asking many times, why? Why are we doing it like this? And people looked at me because we've done it before like this, or because it's the right thing. Why? And I think this discomfort, which many startup people know, this discomfort, this going where nobody has been before, where people look at you and think you're kind of crazy, keep that up. Keep that up, especially when you scale up. We've seen it when people scale up, when they get more important, when they get more revenues, when everything, they lose this feeling of uncomfort, of challenging themselves. And I think this is the one important leadership. Don't get saturated. Don't get the one in the room who feels you control everyone and everything. Don't be that one. You want to be that one who's still, okay, I have to prove it. But I'm on it, keep that. Can you give us an example, public sector-wise, where you said you went in and then this felt very strange, and then you as well tried to change it? What would be an example? Yeah, zillions of examples, zillions. My favorite one is when you're in the ministry, you get these files. By the way, files is not a bad idea because they document stuff, right? So in the end, they're not bad. But I got a file, I read it, I didn't understand the word, and then on every file there's a telephone number. So I picked up the phone, I dialed the number, and of course the other person in the first beginning he said, yeah, blah blah, Müller, and I said Suder, and he said, Suder who? And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm the new state secretary. You could see he was hitting a poster. And then we discussed for a few minutes. It was really good. I understood it. I could get the file rid of. The minute I put on the telephone, people came into my office. My assistant asked me, why are you dialing yourself? Huh? You know, because I can use the phone, right? It's not that difficult. And then my chief of staff said, why are you talking to him, not me? And I talk to this person, to this person, and to this person, and then to him, and then we go all the way back. And I said, why? Right? And so this was a simple moment. And I think there are more of these moments. And the thing is, we changed that, of course. People love it. People hate if their time is wasted. They hate it. They just got used to it. And this is what I mean. We can release that energy, but that's a transformation. People feel uncomfortable. Oh, now I have to talk to her. I never talk to her. Well, you know, talk to me. And I think this is what I mean. But it takes time. You have to take people along. And this is sometimes where startups and think speed is everything. Speed is important, but like my grandma said, mach langsam, wenn schnell gehen soll. So, you know, take your time when you want to speed up. No, speed is not always the answer. Yes, I know, if you're a startup, speed is the answer to everything, but to some things, not to everything.
And in the organization of your office, the question of survival, speed for starters, but you're saying in other contexts. So the lessons you are saying here is if you go in and you observe something new in a system and this feels very strange, voice it,
yes.
at least voice it. And yeah.
Although you're the only one, just do it. It's easy when you're a startup with 6 people. It's different if there are 1,000 people or 20,000 people. But this is what we need. We need people who have the gut feeling and then who trust their own judgment. Maybe you're wrong.
Even if they're not super senior, I think then it makes it easier.
Oh, that is a good thing about soldiers. They tell you right in the face, even though they're not more senior than you, because they have the obligation in our German Führungssystem, which is actually pretty amazing.
Okay, cool. Okay, we have to be quite punctual, but we have at least time for one question. So does anyone want to ask Katrin?
Always about one.
Okay, why don't we do 2? But we need to be fast. Anyone wants to ask a question? If not, I continue. Please.
Hello, Henrik.
Hello, Lieutenant Colonel Christian Kupferstein. The US has the DARPA since decades, and since almost a decade they implemented the Defense Innovation Unit. And if we had looked in the news a few weeks ago, they also had kind of surprised by capabilities of somebody he would say it's not a peer competitor. So what do you think, what can we learn out of that? So, you know, the counter UAS, it's not a new stuff. We wrote about it 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and even they were overwhelmed. So because you asked for a German DARPA, so we need a German DARPA and DIU and how we do not make the same mistakes.
That's a good one, because, I mean, here it's easy because we can learn from them not to do the same mistakes, right? But this brings us back to mistakes and also to risk management. And I think in many respects, mistakes are totally fine. The question is in what dimension you are, right? If you make a process mistake, if you make a setup mistake, I think it's all fine. If you make a mistake, for example, with whatever, with precisions or so on, it's not fine. And I think there we have to classify much more. Which are the mistakes which are okay, where we can be fast and break stuff, and which are the mistakes you have to avoid, and there we need to build risk management and time and diversity into it. One of the big problems is that we are not looking at the same problem from different perspectives. And this is how you can avoid those mistakes, which we've seen there, because systems get too streamlined. And this is, again, my pitch for more diversity. And it can be from outside the system or from people who have done it. And we just have to try, keep trying.
Thanks, Katrin.
All right, it sounds like we're at time, except there's a couple of more minutes, and maybe one more minute.
We take one more question?
1 more minute.
1 more minute. So, your chance, one more question. Please, Clark.
Come. The mic is coming.
Great panel, thanks guys. Katrin, we had the Ukrainians here, thanks to Martin. A lot of really great people running around. They are, to me, the most innovative ecosystem there is in tech right now. There's a million learnings for the Bundeswehr and for German, procurement. What for you is the quick win we could try to get from learning from how they've decentralized and optimized for speed in the way that they're doing defense innovation?
What you just said.
All right, well, there you go.
Decentralize it, right? And I think what is great that the military, the armed forces decided to bring some Ukrainians to us to learn from them, from their capabilities. By the way, just one point, obviously, because they're in this horrible, horrible situation, but we had the same before with the Israelis, if you recall, right? Because they have been under constant pressure right before on the cyber. And this is why we learned from them from the cyber domain. Go out and learn where things are happening.
All right, thank you so much, both of you. Huge round of applause for them, please. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Katrin.